There may now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Ingulowo nalowo aziyaleze enkosini yakhe ngokuthe cwaka. Thank you very much. We may be seated. Honorable Acting Premier, honorable members of the executive, let me take this opportunity once again before we commence with the business of the day to once again lay down the ground rules that will assist in facilitating our hybrid sitting. Members are once again reminded that this is a formal sitting of the legislature, and therefore all rules and standing rules of the legislature applies. And the Rules Committee has ratified and adopted the rules for this virtual hybrid sitting and other committee meetings. I'm aware, honourable members, that there are people who are connected to this sitting or hybrid chamber who are not members of the legislature, and those include the invited guests of the honourable member of the Executive Council, responsible for finance and provincial expenditure. Those people are entitled to observe the proceedings as they would have in a physical sitting, but cannot participate. Furthermore, you are humbly requested to remain muted at all times and not switch on the camera. Members and guests are requested to always keep microphones and videos on mute when speaking, as this will help prevent noise, echo, and disruptions from the background. And you will see there are also, because of the approval using the legislature privileges and immunities, some of the cameramen that are here, because this is one of the important sittings of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. Lastly, I must also welcome the members of the public in the gallery who are with us this afternoon. Please be at ease and feel free. This is your house as well. You are all welcome. Are there any notices of motion? But before I invite you, Honorable Chief Whip, I've been advised that the Multi-Party Whips Committee decided that no motions and member statements will be moved during sitting today, except for the motion on the sitting times of this House. I now invite you, Honorable Chief Whip.
Deputy Speaker, greetings to you, the Acting Premier, the members of the Executive Council, and the members of this august House, and the support staff. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice in terms of Rule 130 of the standing rules that, despite the provisions of the standing rules of procedure of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, the House approves that the plenary sitting of today, 24th November 2022, starts at 16 hours. I so move, Deputy Speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. I now put the motion, honored members. Agreed. Thank you very much. Now that you have noticed the mace has been lowered, it's just to allow the cameramen to be able to walk in front here and take some pictures. And we shall also do the dignity of the House back when I advise appropriately. Thank you very much. I will now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Introduction of Provincial Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2022 Eastern Cape.
I will now call upon the Honorable MEC for Finance to introduce the Provincial Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022-2023. Honorable MEC. I will now, before you start, Honorable MEC, I will now ask the Sergeant-at-Arms to take the mace up again and clear the front. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable MEC.
Ikofeki oh. Niyasokola man. Inkosi kakhulu. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Leaders from society, institutions, DG and all government officials, leaders of political parties, business fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is with great honor and privilege that I table before this House the 2022 adjusted estimates of the provincial revenue and expenditure, the 2022 medium-term budget policy statement, and the 2022 adjusted appropriation bill. The Gazette detailing transfer payments to municipalities, schools, and hospitals has been published on the government printer's website. Honorable Deputy Speaker, not in many occasions humanity has ever sought to lower the guard and surrender to any calamity befalling it. In many fronts, we have faced some gruesome adversity through the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as economic pressures that have culminated in a massive impact on the inflation and its key determinants. Undeterred by all those setbacks, we have remained steadfast in ensuring that we serve our people with astute commitment to protect livelihoods. The stewardship by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, supplemented by able cooperation from the Honorable Premier Oscar Mabuyane, have kept all state institutions and the most vulnerable sectors of our communities with a clear sense of hope and a determination to stay through the storms of the moment. This medium-term budget will reaffirm our fight back through prudent fiscal discipline and economic growth policy direction, while sustaining health, education, and social services to our people as apex priorities of government. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the country's economy is severely subdued and the unemployment numbers are unacceptably high, and the Eastern Cape has not been spared from this. We are in that situation because of a number of factors, including the deteriorating global economic environment that is impacted by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the recent economic shocks that we experienced as a country, prolonged electricity power cuts, and to a lesser extent, the protracted labor disputes. Nationally, we now expect real GDP growth of 1.9% in 2022, compared with an estimate of 2.1% in March. Over the next 3 years, the economy is expected to grow at an average of 1.6%. The Eastern Cape Provincial Economic Outlook is expected to follow the path of national growth trends. For 2022, the provincial economic growth is projected to moderate at 1.7%, following the strong performance during 2021, when the provincial economy is estimated to have expanded by 3.6%. Notwithstanding the constrained economic outlook, we're pinning our hopes to critical sectors of our economy in the province, such as agriculture, construction, transport, finance, and business services. We're pinning on them to drive a positive growth momentum for the province and create the much-needed jobs over the medium term. As a sector, agriculture had managed to create, on net basis, an additional 28,000 new jobs by the end of Q2 in 2022. Since 2020, this sector has been one of the few sectors that have registered overall positive net gains in jobs creation. On construction, the province has managed to accommodate an additional 10,000 jobs year on year in the second quarter of 2022, whilst quarter-on-quarter net new job additions amounted to about 6,000. The resumption of work after delays in some parts of the N2 Wild Coast Road project, will be a major boost for employment and SME development in the province. Although with challenges and sustained decline, by end of Q2 of 2022, total provincial manufacturing employment was estimated at 157,000 compared to 115,000 for same quarter in 2021. This represents a net job creation of 42,000 year on year. Consequently, our official unemployment rate declined to 42.8% in the second quarter of this year, down from 44% in the previous period. Despite these economic challenges, honorable members, there are positive signs to turn our fortunes, including our strength on attracting investment and sustained delivery of economic infrastructure. We must also put more impetus in our support that is aimed at uplifting local producers and small businesses so we can ignite regional economic development and job creation. Honorable Speaker, the successful hosting of the Provincial Investment Conference this month marks an important milestone in our march towards building an inclusive and growing economy that creates jobs and secures livelihoods for all. The investors have once again showed confidence to the Eastern Cape with an announcement of 11 new investments totaling 46.5 billion. We emerged out of that conference with a renewed energy, with a renewed hope and a renewed focus. The outcome of the conference will certainly boost our economic recovery and reconstruction efforts. We put our public entities at the forefront of attracting foreign and local investments, a feat that has characterized our resistance during the worst times. Honorable members, provincial government is working around the clock with its entities and national government on the rollout of economic infrastructure. A lot of progress on key projects has been realized. We're starting to witness progress at the Mzimvubu Water Project with Department of Water and Sanitation having commenced with the construction of the Mzimvubu Water Project Advanced Infrastructure Access Road. The scope of the Mzimvubu Water Project Advanced Infrastructure Access Roads consists of the upgrading of 13-kilometer district road to Hall Road and 3.5-kilometer greenfield to provide access for the construction of the Ndabelanga Dam under the Mzimvubu Water Project. The project is currently 44% complete. Honorable Deputy Speaker, despite intermittent delays, the Wild Coast N2 mega project is taking shape and is well on target in terms of critical milestones. The economic benefits of these mega projects are significant in terms of logistical support, regional economic development, and tourism. The expected reductions in travel times and transport costs as a result of this project will improve the overall competitiveness of agricultural and industrial sectors within the province. Honorable members, we are starting to see positive spin-offs from our engagement with national government in our efforts to avert the water crisis in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, Honorable Banga. As such, the budget facility for infrastructure has allocated 1.8 billion over the coming medium term to Kucha Development Corporation as an implementing agent towards the rollout and upgrading of bulk water infrastructure. This is good news for the people of Nelson Mandela Metro and provincial government as it confirms their rights to quality water will be restored. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we are making progress on the provincial broadband project that is targeting to connect at least 2,700 key government sites based on a broadband as a service model. The first milestone of connecting 600 sites was completed in June this year. The next milestone of another 600 sites is expected to be completed in June 2023, and the third milestone of 1,500 sites by June 2024. By 27 September 2022, 655 fiber sites across the province had been rolled out. All head offices have been connected, broadband being used for office communication and transaction processing for transversal systems. About 430 schools are connected, mainly using internet to access learning materials. But the provincial government is working with the Department of Education to develop an e-learning, e-education strategy. We are also making progress in using 81 hospitals and clinics for smart health HMS2 system using radiology systems, x-rays, and patient registration. Honorable members will recall that some parts of the province were declared as disaster areas following heavy floods that damaged some of our basic infrastructure. And during these adjustments, we'll use some of the funds that we received from the conditional grants to fix some of the damages incurred. As such, of the 627.8 million allocated to provincial roads maintenance grants, 307.8 million is for modular bridges and 320 million is for the repair of provincial roads damaged during the floods. We will further use the 21.7 million rand allocated for education infrastructure grant for the reconstruction and the rehabilitation of schools damaged by floods in 2021 and 2022. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I wish to highlight that Provincial Treasury has resolved not to allow for the investment in infrastructure projects through the moving of funds away from infrastructure for consumption purposes, considering the huge infrastructure backlogs we have in the province. To this end, a circular will be put in place clearly articulating this requirement. To further build on our capacity on infrastructure, the province has appointed 2 service providers to support the province in improving integrated planning of projects as well as the packaging of projects for alternative sources of funding. To this end, progress has been made as the province has since dealt with the cleansing of the project data, and the focus is now on spatial planning to complement investment. In terms of sourcing alternative funds, inroads have been made with engagements with the BRICS Bank and the Infrastructure Fund, and a memorandum of understanding will be signed with these investment partners. Honorable members, given that the Provincial Economic Stimulus Fund has come to an end as of the 2021-2022 financial year, government has not ceased its efforts to enhance economic growth and financial support of the industry. If you will remember, we had allocated 1.1 billion rand for the Economic Stimulus Fund. The provincial government is already underway in establishing an Eastern Cape Provincial Economic Development Fund with the aim of anchoring the economic development objectives of the province. The fund is intended at providing resources for strategic economic development imperatives. ECDC is currently working towards recruiting the management and specialized skills, including systems for the fund. With this fund, it is envisioned that funding gaps in the province will be addressed, especially in high potential growth sectors and for economic development initiatives. Further details on the fund will be revealed in March 2023. Honorable members, the Isikalo Youth Fund was set up to avail funding support towards youth-owned enterprises for sustainable job creation and enterprises. Through this funding instrument, a lot has been achieved in developing and creating employment for the youth of this province. Since establishment, the disbursements to date amount to 30.5 million rand. To ensure that this fund continues without any glitches and is able to reach more youth businesses, an amount of 7.4 million rand has been added in this adjustment budget. Further announcements on this will be made in our budget in March next year. Honorable Speaker, our fiscal outlook remains constrained, although with hope that the increases on tax revenue collections, as reported by National Treasury, will be sustained to have positive yields into our fiscal space. There is commitment from government that the additional revenue will assist government to augment funding for infrastructure development and other service delivery programs. Honorable members, this year's mini budget mirrors some adjustments from the main appropriation we tabled in March 2022. The provincial equitable share adjusted budget for the current year is 73.5 billion rand, which represents an increase of 1.3 billion rand from the 72.2 billion rand we allocated earlier this year. The province will also see increase in the adjusted conditional grant funding for 2022-2023, mainly to address disasters that were caused by the recent floods. Our conditional grants will increase from a total of 13.8 billion rand in the main appropriation to 14.4 billion rand in the adjusted appropriation, reflecting an increase of about 649.5 million rand. Now, turning to the payment side, the total adjustment shows an additional amount of 3.1 billion rand allocated to the 2022-23 main budget, increasing our budget payments from 86.4 billion rand to adjusted appropriation of 89.5 billion rand. The adjustments increase includes additional funding of 1.3 billion rand that is allocated for salary increases, as were announced by the Minister during the National Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement in Parliament on the 26th of October 2022. Members, we expect no significant changes to the conditional grants in the 2023 budget. This is due to National Treasury reviewing the conditional grant system to determine if it is structured in a way that supports efficient service delivery, rollout of infrastructure, building of capacity, and provision of operational support. The finding will be used to reform the grant system for greater impact. Honourable members, we are pleased that there are no new budget cuts that have been implemented by national government this year. Following the cut of 28.1 billion rand in the 2021 MTF, which is made up of 7.2 billion 21-22, 11.4 billion 22-23, and 9.5 billion in 23-24. Because of the fiscal stability that has been created through increased tax revenue collections, national government has promised increased public expenditure to stimulate economic growth and job creation. To sustain these gains in the province, the fiscal consolidation measures will continue to guide our medium-term expenditure plans. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the current economic challenges and constrained fiscal environment demands that we up the ante in revenue collection if we are to find the balance between income and spending. We are all aware of the recommendations of the study we conducted on revenue enhancement, which showed that the province has a potential of collecting 7.6 billion rand in a financial year. The early signs on revenue collection shows that the implementation of the revenue plans is not progressing satisfactorily. The four key revenue-generating departments, being public works and infrastructure, health, transport, and DSDIT, must come to the party, failing which very soon the province will not be able to fund its own priorities and also will fail to address its budget pressures. Honourable members, as we are aware, the main purpose of the adjustment budget is the appropriation of funds that have been made available to the province and to allocate funding for unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditures. The adjustment budget also provides departments with an opportunity to shift funds from underperforming areas to areas that are experiencing cost pressures. Of the 14 departments, only 2 departments show a decrease in the baseline appropriation in the adjustment budgets. Firstly, our Office of the Premier shows a net decrease of 22.1 million rand as funds for the rollout of the broadband have been surrendered to the Provincial Revenue Fund because of the slow progress in connecting the identified sites. Secondly, Provincial Treasury shows a net decrease of 10.5 million rand due to savings on compensation of employees and rescheduling of the budget for ICT switching infrastructure to the 2023-24 financial year. Honourable members, the Departments of Education and Health received the bulk of the additional funding in allocation in the adjusted budget. Education receives a net of 1.2 billion with 707.4 million rand of that amount allocated for salary increases, 226.3 million rand allocated for educators and principals in line with the post-provisioning norms, and 291.7 million rand rollover of unspent funds in 2021-22 allocated for the education infrastructure grant. The Department of Health baseline was increased by a net of 896.8 million in the adjusted budget, which includes 442 million rand for compensation of employees, 316.5 million rand for payment of medical legal claims, 42 million rand for diesel and energy costs because of increased load shedding, and 38 million rand for the payment of Microsoft software licenses. With the additional funding provided in the adjustments, the Department of Health will have a total of 379.9 million rand to settle medical legal claims in the current financial year. The Department of Transport total adjustments amount to 645 million rand, of which 627.9 million rand was allocated for the provincial roads maintenance grants to deal with provincial roads and bridges damaged by the recent floods. Provincial legislature receives 50.8 million rand, mainly for compensation of members and employees, and also for the improvement of the oversight functions and for public participation. An amount of 70 million rand was allocated to public works and infrastructure to deal with the rates and taxes as a result of the increases by the municipalities in the province, which have been above the consumer price index, while 10 million rand is allocated for land audits. Bengicinga xa ifika kulaa ndawo ithetha nge-legislature noko uchief whip uzawulidisha into eqhwabayo. Kuba ke nifumene manyathi. That the deed receives a total of 70.5 million rand, of which 38 million rand is allocated to Kucha Development Corporation for its operational costs, and 3 million rand is to be used for the operational costs of the Wild Coast Industrial Park. We want this Wild Coast Industrial Park dream to be realized. That's why we are allocating even in the adjustment budget. An amount of 16 million rand is for the N2 biodiversity offset project implemented by the Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency in 2022-23, and 4.1 million rand to cover compensation of employees of at ECPTA. Lastly, human settlements received 63.6 million rand, of which 50.7 million rand is a rollover of 2021-22 unspent funds for the Human Settlements Development Grant. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we've got to develop intolerance towards insufficiencies such as failure to spend. If we are serious about growth and development, we've got to be intolerant of these two. It is very difficult to justify our case for more funding when we struggle to spend the little we have. All these rollovers are a clear indication of substandard spending patterns. Deputy Speaker, it is worth reiterating that we are a caring government, and as such, our budget for 2023 MTF will remain pro-poor. Our spending will continue to focus on improving access to education, healthcare, and social services consistent with government priorities. Consequently, the social sector is estimated to receive 217.1 billion rand of the total provincial allocations of 271.6 billion rand over the 2023 MTF, representing just about 80% of the provincial budget. An estimated amount of 25.2 billion rand will be spent on infrastructure, with departments of transport, health, education, and human settlements accounting for just over 90% of that allocation. We therefore implore all our institutions to make choices that prioritize the lives of our people in light of the current services delivery challenges and in light of the limited resources. Details of how this budget will be used and managed will be communicated in March next year. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, a lot of attention is being given to the Department of Health because of a number of challenges that are found in the healthcare system. At the core of these challenges is the medical legal claims that are draining provincial coffers, leaving health with serious cash flow challenges. To turn around the department, the provincial government has adopted a comprehensive health turnaround strategy whose main purpose is to steer provincial health services into becoming more comprehensive and balanced in responding to individual, patient, family, and community health needs. For us to achieve that, however, we will require some reorganization of current delivery platforms with increased emphasis on e-health and patient health data. The strategy will look at improving the department's financial sustainability, strengthen integrated medical legal support and prioritization of digitalization and e-health, amongst other objectives. And as part of the medical legal strategy, the Office of the Premier and Provincial Treasury are providing appropriate legal support and services in order to reduce the impact of medical legal claims in the province. As alluded earlier, a total adjustment budget of 379.9 million rand is set aside to deal with medical legal payments. I wish to encourage the Department of Health to hold all those who are implicated in the negligent cases accountable, and thereby institute consequence management when necessary. It is bizarre that we settle millions of money for negligent cases and no one is held accountable. Honorable Deputy Speaker, just as health education is enjoying intervention from Treasury because of a number of inefficiencies that are found in the system, it's acknowledged that the issues faced by education are cross-cutting from human resources, finances, ICT, and as well as the infrastructure management. We are looking into their service delivery model and organogram strategy, head count of educators, as well as strengthening the payroll management and ensuring teachers are in classroom in front of learners. The management of infrastructure by the Department of Education and its implementing agents must improve, as the current infrastructure performance is below the projections. It is due to the poor implementation of infrastructure in 2021-22 financial year that the province lost an amount of 255 million rand from the education infrastructure grant. Current in-year expenditure performance on infrastructure is also below the desired spending, and there is a possibility of a similar cut in this year's grant allocation if this poor performance continues. Honorable members, we are raising these issues so we can improve performance and achieve our service delivery imperatives. Combined health and education account for over 70% of the provincial budget. It is when these two departments are performing at acceptable levels that we shall see value in what we do. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we are all aware of the court decisions on the preferential procurement regulations of 2017. The recent promulgation of the preferential procurement regulations of 2022, which will become effective on the 16th of January 2023, require departments to determine their own specific goals for preferential procurement. To this end, the rollout will include training on how to determine specific goals and apply such during procurement. Departments and public entities will be guided on which specific goals should be included in their SAM policies as a minimum. These include allocation of preference points for Eastern Cape-based women, youth, military veterans, and disabled owned suppliers, amongst others. The new regulations should therefore be used as a springboard to support and promote provincial suppliers. Currently, Provincial Treasury, in collaboration with GDID and Rural Development and Agrarian Reform, is supporting the Department of Health, Education, and Social Development with the process of procuring agricultural food products for school feeding, hospital food, and food parcels from provincial farmers and aggregators. Excuse me. I know that the legislature has raised this matter a number of times. That is why we as Treasury are in collaboration with DDID, which is the custodian of the LEDPF, are assisting this department so that the schools, the hospitals can procure agricultural food products from within the province, especially within our own entities where government pumps in a lot of money. Honorable Speaker and members, our efforts to improve governance and accountability in the province is showing a steady progress, with the number of entities audited under the PFMA increasing to 11 during the 2021-22 financial year, 22 when we include public entities. For the audits under the under the MFMA, the province was listed as one of the provinces showing most improvements in the general report for the 2020-21 financial year. We're delighted that during this sixth term of administration, a solid ground is laid so that as we get to the end of this term, these improvements, coupled with tangible service delivery achievements, would have translated to government regaining a public trust. It is unprecedented that 14 institutions, including public entities, achieve clean audit opinions during a single audit year. The progress should encourage all entities under the PFMA to reach unqualified levels at the very best, and at the very best achieve a clean audit by the end of this term. Intensive support is being given by provincial treasury to those that are still lagging behind. This will, however, not succeed without reciprocation by those departments who are supposed to give priority in addressing qualifications, having clear commitments to implementing internal controls, including addressing findings by all assurance providers. It must also be noted that the Standing Committee on Public Accounts has audit improvement plans and have been complaining about consequence management. Hence, I make a clarion call to executive authorities to have frank assessment on the reasons for audit findings, especially qualified audit opinions. We are well aware of similar challenges for local government, and we continually review our oversight measures as stakeholders that are mandated to support local government. Various support has been provided to municipalities to improve financial management and influence sustainability. To this effect, we have again narrowed the number of unfunded budgets to 7 municipalities for the 2022-23 budget year. If you remember in the previous reports, we were starting each financial year with more than 20 municipalities who had passed unfunded budgets. Provincial Treasury and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs will continue to intensify provincial support and oversight for municipalities on the implementation of audit action plans and evaluation of M-SCORE monthly reports. This will have a positive impact on the audit outcomes. We are encouraged by the drive by the Honorable Premier through his intergovernmental forum, whose objective is to improve infrastructure spending, avoiding wasting funds on non-priority expenditure, collecting revenues that are due, and also payment of creditors in terms of the MFMA. Provincial Treasury and COCTA will lead the cooperation by all relevant stakeholders to leverage on these efforts by the Honorable Premier in order to improve the outlook of local government. We must improve in infrastructure spending and get to a point where the investment that we get as a province find value and impact at a municipal level. That we can do only when we create conducive environment through provision of basic infrastructure such as roads, water, and electricity. I wish to again encourage provincial departments, entities, and municipalities to work in a collaborative and integrated manner to ensure efficient use of resources and make the desired impact on service delivery. At the state of the economy and fiscal environment that we currently are, we cannot afford duplication of efforts and unnecessary seepages in public funds. People of this province are looking up to us to change their fortunes as the scourge of unemployment, inequality, and poverty continues to haunt them. It's time for us all to rebel against fraud and corruption and consolidate all positive gains as we march towards an inclusive and growing economy that creates jobs and secures livelihoods for all. Let me take this moment to thank the Premier and his executive for guidance and support, respectively. I also wish to thank the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure and other oversight structures for the enforcement of governance and accountability. Lastly, I wish to thank the Head of Treasury, SMS, and all staff for ensuring that we put together a quality budget that supports the service delivery imperatives of this province. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Asibulele Mphathiswa. The bill stands referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure in terms of Rule 161. I will now ask the Secretary to read the second order of the day.
Tabling of the combined annual financial statements for the year ended 31st March 2022.
I will again call upon the Honorable MEC Finance to table 2021-2022 combined annual financial statements.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members of the Executive Council, HODs, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to stand before this House to table the 2021-22 combined financial statements reflecting the financial position of the province. Section 19 of the PFMA requires that provincial treasuries prepare and table the consolidated financial statements in respect of provincial departments and public entities under the control of the provincial executive and the provincial legislature. The combined financial statements that we are tabling to this House today demonstrate the progress we have made to realize one of the key objectives of this province, which is to promote transparency and accountability to our citizens through good financial management standards. While one can look at the combined financial statements that we are tabling to this House today as showing stagnation with no shift in the numbers of entities that are qualified, there is progress in the number of departments that have achieved clean audits. We celebrate new entrants in the category, being the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism, the Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform, Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, and the Government Fleet Management Service, a trading entity under the Department of Transport. These join the Department of Community Safety, Provincial Treasury, COCTA, and the Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. The following entities have maintained clean audit for the past 5 years: the East London IDZ, Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency, Eastern Cape Socio-Economic Consultative Council, Eastern Cape Gambling Board, Eastern Cape Liquor Board, and Kucha Development Corporation has maintained a clean audit for the past 3 years. Departments, because that is job well done. Departments and entities that have maintained some stability in unqualified opinion over the past 3 years, which are candidates in moving to clean audits, include the Office of the Premier, the Department of Social Development, the Department of Human Settlements, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, Eastern Cape Development Corporation, Eastern Cape Rural Development Agency, Maibuye Transport Corporation, and Eastern Cape Provincial Arts and Culture Council. Notwithstanding this celebration, the stark reality on the work we need to do on departments of health and education, which still remain qualified, does not evade us, Honorable Deputy Speaker. It is for this reason that intensive support is being given to these departments, including the Department of Transport, also on the qualified category. Of particular note are the risks that still exist across departments and entities, where systems of internal controls are still not at desired levels of maturity. While accounting reforms on inventory, immovable assets, and the compliance framework also pose particular challenges. Treasury, working with the chief financial officers, will have to work hard in mitigating these risks, including the clearing of irregular expenditure balances. Closing, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I must therefore congratulate my colleagues on the improvements and also acknowledge the strides made at various quarters of the province toward the same goal. In particular, I must thank the esteemed members of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts and the Auditor General for keeping us on our toes on the issues of improving the audit opinions. I hereby table the combined financial statements for the 2021-22 financial year as required by Section 19(3) of the PFMA. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC. Honorable members, the statements stand referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure in terms of Rule 161. But before I conclude the business for the day, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence in our midst of Ms. Amila Zibonda, who is doing grade 11, the daughter of Honorable Zibonda, in one of the prestigious high schools in Cathcart High. The learner is here, and Honorable MEC, she said, can you raise so that the chamber acknowledges your presence, ma'am? Yes. The second learner is Ms. Tamela Julie from St. Christopher here in King Williamstown, doing grade 9. Can you stand? Thank you very much. They are very much impressed by the work we are doing here, and they are future legislators themselves. And we are keeping future on their behalf. Siyabulela ke bantwana bam ngoba lapha nizobona ba iParliament isebenza kanjani. And Director General and the HOD Superintendents General that are present, we are grateful that you have managed to make it after a very serious agenda that we attended this morning, the Moral Regeneration Movement, that is also speaking to the issues that the Honorable MEC is speaking about here. Keep the good work. This province must be a compelling destination for investment, and it will only be through this kind of ethics and character that has been defined in the session this morning. Thank you very much to those that were connecting in this sitting virtually, and to our members at the gallery here. For without you present here, this legislature surely would have been empty in terms of what we are here to do. You spirited our presence. And nangamso ntozakuthi Ndebe qhubeleke nomsebenzi omhle eliphondo lingaphansi ubharha umkhitha walo abantu besalithanda makuyosetyenzwa. That concludes the presentation on this matter and the business for the day. The House will adjourn until Tuesday, the 6th of December 2022 at 2:15. House is adjourned.